A wealthy man marries a homeless woman on a dare, but what he learns on their wedding night changes everything. Before we jump into the story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Enjoy. Nathan Parker, a self-assured and wealthy businessman, exuded confidence as he stood on the balcony of an extravagant party. He was always in control, untouched by anything, until his old friend, Michael Carter, approached with a glass of wine and a mischievous smirk. "You always say money can buy anything, right?" Michael said, breaking the silence. Nathan sipped his champagne, his expression unmoved. "Because it can." Michael leaned against the balcony railing and pointed toward the street below, where a young woman sat barefoot on the pavement, her clothes tattered, her face tired, yet resilient. "See her?" Michael's tone carried a challenge. "I bet you $2 million that you can't turn her into a high society woman and stay married to her for 3 months. Nathan's gaze lingered on the woman. To him, she wasn't a person, just a pawn in yet another game he was confident he'd win. $2 million? He smirked. "You underestimate me, Michael?" "Then prove it," Michael said, raising his glass in a toast. Nathan remained silent, watching the woman. She seemed lost in her own world, oblivious to the spectacle above. A small plastic cup beside her held a few scattered coins, clinking occasionally in the night air. "Looks like tonight's entertainment just started," Nathan murmured before turning and heading inside. Minutes later, he was on the sidewalk, standing just a few feet away from the woman. Under the dim glow of a street lamp, her features became clearer. Messy hair, weary eyes, and a quiet strength that intrigued him. She held a worn piece of cardboard with shaky handwriting. "Anything helps." "Excuse me?" Nathan said, his voice more of a command than a request. She looked up, startled. Her blue eyes, dulled by hardship, held an intensity Nathan hadn't expected. "What do you want?" she asked warily, shrinking into herself. Nathan offered a smile, one that carried both arrogance and curiosity. "I have a proposition for you, something that could change your life." She frowned, suspicious but silent. "I'm serious." He crouched down to meet her gaze. "My name is Parker. I have money, a lot of it, and I need someone like you for a personal project." "Project?" she scoffed, her dry voice laced with disbelief. "I'm not some experiment, Mr. Moneybags." Nathan ignored her tone and pressed on with calculated precision. "I'll pay you well. You'll have food, clothes, a place to stay. All you have to do is marry me for 3 months." She blinked, incredulous. "You must be joking." "I don't joke about business," Nathan replied. "It's simple, a marriage of convenience, no strings attached. After 3 months, we go our separate ways, and you walk away with more money than you've ever imagined." She sat in silence, processing the absurdity of his words. Her life had been a downward spiral, a series of losses that had left her with nothing. And yet, something about Nathan's cold confidence irritated her. "Why me?" she finally asked. "Because you're here," he replied bluntly. His indifferent response almost made her get up and walk away, but the hunger clawing at her stomach and the chill of the night kept her rooted in place. "My name is Emily Clark," she murmured. "And if I agree, how do I know this isn't some kind of scam?" Without hesitation, Nathan pulled out his phone and made a call. Moments later, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. A sharply dressed driver stepped out and opened the door. "Get in," Nathan instructed. "We'll talk somewhere more comfortable." Emily hesitated, but the promise of warmth, even if just for a few hours, was too tempting. She climbed into the car, and Nathan followed, instructing the driver to take them to the nearest 5-star hotel. The silence during the ride was heavy. Emily watched the city lights blur past the window, while Nathan casually typed on his phone, indifferent. When they arrived, they were escorted to a luxurious suite. Emily's breath caught at the sight. Plush carpets, elegant furniture, a breathtaking view of the city. She had never been anywhere like this. Nathan ordered room service, food, fresh clothes. Emily, still on guard, lingered near the door, watching him closely. "Relax," Nathan said, pouring himself a glass of whiskey. "I have no interest in hurting you. This is just a deal." Minutes later, food arrived, and Emily ate without hesitation. Hunger overpowered her doubts. Nathan watched her, studying her every movement. "So," he asked when she finished, "do you agree or not?" Emily wiped her mouth with a napkin, took a deep breath, and asked, "How much are you paying me?" "$1 million, Nathan answered, as if it were nothing. Emily nearly choked. The number seemed unreal. With that kind of money, she could start over, maybe even help others like her. But was she really willing to trade her dignity for it? "I need some assurances," Emily said, trying to reclaim some control over the conversation. Nathan nodded. "Everything will be in writing. My lawyer will draft a contract. You'll have food, clothes, and a private room in my estate." "And the wedding?" she asked hesitantly. "Tomorrow," Nathan replied bluntly. "It'll be quick. Just a formality." Emily ran a hand through her tangled hair, feeling trapped. His words left no room for negotiation. After a long pause, she sighed and nodded. "All right." Nathan stood, satisfied. "Good. Get some rest tonight. Tomorrow begins the next chapter of your life." Emily watched as he left the suite, leaving her alone in the overwhelming luxury. The silence that followed was almost suffocating. She had made a risky decision, but deep down, she felt as though she had no real choice. The next morning, a soft knock at the door woke her. A hotel staff member entered, placing a breakfast tray on the table alongside neatly folded clothes. Emily examined them, fine fabrics in neutral tones, perfectly tailored to her size. As she ate, the weight of her decision settled on her. 3 months of her life in exchange for $1 million. The thought of starting over was dizzying, suddenly more real than ever before. Shortly after, Nathan arrived, as composed as always, carrying a leather folder. He placed it in front of her. "Here's the contract. Read it, sign it, and be at the courthouse by 2. Emily flipped through the pages, scanning the clauses and conditions. Every detail was laid out in precise legal language. It all seemed legitimate, but the cold formality of it unsettled her. Still, she signed, each stroke of the pen sealing what felt like an irreversible fate. The wedding itself was quick and emotionless. A few words exchanged before an impersonal judge, a couple of signatures, and it was done. Emily Clark was now Emily Parker, legally bound to a man she barely knew. There were no guests. Only the lawyer and Nathan's driver stood as witnesses. As they left the courthouse, Nathan placed a hand on Emily's back, guiding her toward the waiting car. There was no warmth in the gesture, only mechanical precision, as if he were simply fulfilling a requirement. "And now?" Emily asked, as the car pulled into traffic. "Now we go to my estate," Nathan said, eyes on his phone. "That's where you'll be staying." The Parker estate was even grander than Emily had imagined. The towering wrought iron gates opened automatically, revealing a long driveway lined with immaculately trimmed gardens. The house itself was massive, with white columns and floor-to-ceiling windows reflecting the sky. Inside, a team of staff awaited. Nathan gave brief instructions for them to prepare a room for his new wife. Meanwhile, Emily remained silent, overwhelmed by her surroundings. By nightfall, Nathan invited her to dinner. The dining room was enormous, dominated by a long table under a dazzling crystal chandelier. Emily sat at one end, Nathan at the other. The distance between them felt symbolic. Nathan, unfazed, began eating. "How are you settling in?" he asked, his tone almost casual. Emily hesitated before answering. "I'm not used to this kind of luxury." Nathan allowed a faint smile. "You'll get used to it." After dinner, he walked her to the room prepared for her. Their footsteps echoed softly down the hallway until Emily suddenly stopped and turned to him. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, finally giving voice to the question that had been haunting her since the beginning. Nathan crossed his arms and leaned against the wall. "Because I can." Emily narrowed her eyes, a mix of anger and curiosity stirring inside her. "This isn't random. People like you don't do things like this without a reason." Nathan didn't answer. Instead, he gave her a faint, unreadable smile before stepping away. "Get some rest. Tomorrow, everything changes." Later that night, Emily sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the luxurious room around her. But it wasn't just the grandeur of the mansion that unsettled her. Something else was nagging at the back of her mind. Then, like a lightning bolt, a memory surfaced. Years ago, she had been in an interview room, sitting nervously in her best outfit, clutching a carefully prepared resume. The company? Parker Enterprises. And the man sitting across from her? Nathan Parker. She could still hear his dismissive words, his cold gaze as he barely glanced at her file before shutting it. "We don't waste time on amateurs." That interview had been a turning point. The rejection had shattered her confidence, and everything had spiraled downward from there. And now, ironically, she was married to the very man who had played a role in her downfall. Anger bubbled up inside her. Did he not remember? Or worse? Did he remember and simply not care? Determined, she left her room and found Nathan in his study, reviewing documents. "I need to ask you something," she said, crossing her arms. Nathan looked up, slightly surprised by the interruption. "What is it? Do you really not remember me?" Her voice wavered between frustration and something deeper. Nathan frowned, studying her face. "Should I?" Emily clenched her fists. "A few years ago, I came to your company for a job interview. You humiliated me in front of everyone." Nathan was silent for a moment as if searching his memory. Then he shrugged. "I interview dozens of people every month. I don't remember all of them." His indifference cut deeper than she expected. "Of course you don't," she said bitterly. "People like me don't matter to you. We're disposable." Nathan remained quiet, but something in Emily's expression unsettled him. He stood as if he wanted to say something, but she had already turned away, heading back to her room. Lying in bed that night, she realized this wasn't just a cold arrangement. This was fate handing her a second chance, not just for financial security, but to stand face to face with the man who had once dismissed her. But she was no longer that desperate young woman. This time, she would be in control. The next morning, sunlight poured through the tall windows as Emily woke, still haunted by the conversation from the night before. But she refused to let it consume her. After a quick shower, she went downstairs for breakfast, finding Nathan already seated at the table, reading a newspaper. "Good morning," she said evenly. Nathan nodded without looking up. The silence between them was heavy, but Emily refused to let it intimidate her. She poured herself a cup of coffee and sat down. "So, what's next?" she asked, breaking the stillness. Nathan finally lowered the newspaper and met her gaze with a faint smirk. "Now, your transformation begins. We have a team of stylists, etiquette instructors, even a posture coach. Soon, you'll be introduced to high society as my wife." Emily scoffed. "As if expensive clothes can erase everything I've been through." Nathan ignored her sarcasm. "Next week's business dinner will be your first test. I need you to be flawless." The days that followed were exhausting. From morning to night, Emily endured endless wardrobe fittings, etiquette lessons, and posture drills. Though she despised the superficiality of it all, she knew one thing for sure. If this was a game, she was going to learn how to play it. Emily began to notice herself adjusting to the new environment. Despite her initial resistance, she was learning fast. Nathan, meanwhile, remained distant, though he couldn't ignore the shift she was bringing to the household. Unlike the women he had known before, she didn't cater to his authority. She challenged it. One afternoon, as Emily practiced walking gracefully across the grand hall, Nathan entered quietly, watching from a distance. When she noticed him, she stopped, crossing her arms. "Enjoying the show?" she asked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Nathan gave a small smile. "Just assessing your progress. You're doing well." Emily scoffed. "Glad to know I meet your high standards, Mr. Parker." Nathan stepped closer, stopping just a few feet away. "Why does it always feel like you're ready for a fight?" "Maybe because you deserve it," she shot back without hesitation. Nathan paused, momentarily caught off guard by her honesty. Then, as if deciding to let it go, he took a step back. "Get ready. We're going out tonight." "Where?" Emily asked, suspicious. "A private dinner. I want to see how you handle yourself in public." That evening, they arrived at one of the city's most exclusive restaurants. Emily, in an elegant dress chosen by Nathan's stylist, drew admiring glances, though the attention made her uneasy. Nathan, on the other hand, seemed completely in his element. During dinner, Nathan noticed her subtle nerves, her fingers fidgeting with the strap of her dress, her gaze shifting around the room. "Relax," he said in a low voice. "You're doing great." Emily looked up, surprised at his encouragement. "I'm not used to any of this." "You will be," Nathan said, leaning in slightly. "Trust me." For a brief moment, Emily caught something different in his expression. He wasn't just the cold, calculating man she had come to know. There was something more, something almost vulnerable. On the way back to the estate, the atmosphere in the car felt lighter. Nathan commented on her performance at dinner, pointing out minor improvements she could make, though his usual critical tone was absent. "You're really taking this seriously, aren't you?" Emily asked, curious. Nathan glanced at her from the corner of his eye. "I take all my challenges seriously." The word challenge made Emily tense. She still didn't fully understand what Nathan had to gain from all this, but the thought of being just another piece in his game left a bitter taste in her mouth. Later that night, unable to sleep, Emily wandered through the quiet mansion. As she moved down the hallways, she came across a slightly open door leading to an office. Inside, a massive wooden desk was cluttered with documents. Curiosity got the best of her, and she stepped inside. Among the contracts and financial reports, a particular set of papers caught her attention. As she read through them, her blood ran cold. A printed conversation between Nathan and another man laid everything bare. "Has she agreed?" One message read, "Yes. It's only a matter of time before I win." Nathan's response was chillingly indifferent. Emily's stomach churned. She had suspected there was more to his actions, but seeing the words in black and white made it undeniable. She wasn't a person to him, just a bet. At that moment, the door creaked open. Nathan stood there, his expression darkening as he saw the papers in her hands. "What are you doing in here?" His voice was low, tense. Emily clutched the papers tightly. "Is this how you see me? Just some game to win?" Nathan stepped forward, trying to take the papers, but she pulled back. "Answer me!" she demanded, her voice trembling with fury. Nathan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's not as simple as you think." Emily let out a bitter laugh. "Not simple? You played with my life like I was nothing." "Emily!" Nathan started, but she cut him off. "Don't you dare try to justify this," she shouted, throwing the papers onto the desk before storming out. Nathan stood there, staring at the scattered documents. For the first time in years, he felt as if he had lost control. Emily barely registered her own breath as she rushed up the stairs, her heart pounding in her chest. Once inside her room, she locked the door and leaned against it, trying to steady herself. Finding out about the bet had shattered any tolerance she had built up over the past few days. "I can't stay here." Tears of anger and humiliation burned her eyes as she looked around, desperate for a way out. That night, while the mansion slept, Emily made her move. She changed into simple clothes, packed a small bag with whatever essentials she had, and carefully opened the window. Steadying herself, she climbed down the trellis covered in rose vines, her breath hitching as her feet finally touched the ground. The night air was cold against her skin, but she didn't care. She looked back at the towering mansion, its silhouette stark against the sky. A part of her wanted to scream, to make Nathan feel the same pain she did. But instead, she turned and ran. The streets were empty as Emily walked for hours, ignoring the exhaustion settling into her bones. She didn't stop until she reached the city center, where she finally collapsed onto a bench inside a subway station. Curling up, she tried to shut out the whirlwind of emotions threatening to consume her. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, the silence was finally broken. Nathan woke early, expecting to see Emily at breakfast. At first, he wasn't concerned, assuming she needed space after their heated argument the night before. But when a staff member mentioned that no one had seen her since dinner, an uneasy feeling crept over him. "Check her room," he ordered, keeping his voice steady. Minutes later, the butler returned, his expression tense. "Sir, the room is empty, and the window, it's open." Nathan's stomach clenched. He hurried upstairs, pushing open the door to Emily's room. The bed was untouched, her clothes still hanging neatly in the closet. He walked to the window, noticing the faint marks on the trellis outside. "She ran," he muttered, his jaw tightening. Without hesitation, he grabbed his phone and started making calls, reaching out to every contact he had. The thought of Emily wandering the streets alone unsettled him in a way he couldn't explain. It wasn't about the bet anymore. Something deeper was driving him. Regret. Meanwhile, Emily staggered through the city streets, exhaustion weighing her down. Her body was running on empty, fever creeping through her limbs. Still, she pushed forward. Every step was an act of defiance, proof that she refused to be controlled by Nathan or anyone else. At dawn, she reached a quiet square and collapsed onto a wooden bench. Her hands trembled, her vision blurred. She needed help, but pride kept her from asking. As her body gave in to exhaustion, she let her eyes close. Nathan had been driving for hours, searching every street and alley, his focus razor sharp. He scanned sidewalks, park benches, anywhere she might have stopped to rest. Guilt gnawed at him. He had never considered that his actions could hurt her this much. As the sun rose higher, he finally spotted her. Emily lay curled on a bench under a thin blanket, likely left by a kind stranger. Her face was pale, her body trembling from fever. "Emily!" Nathan called out, rushing toward her. Her eyelids fluttered open, her unfocused gaze barely registering him. "What are you doing here?" she whispered, her voice weak. "I'm taking you home," he said firmly, his concern unmistakable. She let out a bitter chuckle. "I don't have a home." Nathan didn't hesitate. He lifted her into his arms, ignoring her feeble attempts to resist, and carried her to his car. The drive to the hospital was silent. Nathan's hands gripped the wheel, his mind racing. Words wouldn't be enough to fix this. He knew that now. At the hospital, the doctors confirmed Emily was dehydrated and running a dangerously high fever. Nathan stayed by her bedside, watching as the medical staff cared for her. A heavy weight pressed on his chest. For the first time in years, he felt powerless. Hours later, Emily stirred, her eyes slowly opening. Nathan sat beside her, exhaustion evident in his face. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "Because I care," Nathan said softly. Emily let out a faint, humorless laugh. "You don't know what it means to care about anyone but yourself." Nathan lowered his head, gripping his hands together. "Maybe you're right," he admitted, "but I'm trying to change." Emily studied him, unsure of what to believe. Her mind was too tired to process his words. The next morning, the soft shuffle of footsteps stirred Emily awake. A nurse adjusted her IV, her presence reassuring. For the first time in a long while, Emily felt safe. Nathan was nowhere to be seen, and she allowed herself to relax. But soon, the door opened, and he stepped inside, carrying a small paper bag. He was dressed casually, a rare sight that made him look almost human. "I brought you something?" he said, placing the bag on the bedside table. His expression held something unfamiliar. Not arrogance, not control, just quiet determination. Emily watched Nathan silently, her expression unreadable. Nathan pulled up a chair and sat down at a respectful distance. "It's soup," he said, opening the bag. "You need to regain your strength." The next morning, Jonathan arrived at the office early. The weight of regret pressed down on him, but he knew he couldn't keep avoiding the truth. This wasn't about confronting Evelyn or trying to convince the board. He needed to confront himself. Sitting alone in his office, surrounded by reports and notes, he found himself analyzing his own choices more critically than ever before. He recalled Evelyn's words during the last meeting, how she had challenged his entire outlook, not just as a leader, but as a person. "You still see this company as nothing more than a machine for profit," she had told him. And now, for the first time, he truly understood the weight of that statement. What did leadership really mean? Had he ever actually understood it? Looking around his empty office, he realized something unsettling. Perhaps true leadership had never been a part of his life. Maybe he had just been playing a role all along, acting as the ruthless, calculating businessman who measured success purely in numbers. But now, standing at the edge of losing everything, he could see the flaw in that mindset. Leadership had to be more than just numbers on a balance sheet. For the first time, he saw the people behind those numbers, the employees, the partners, the communities that depended on the decisions he made. Later that afternoon, Evelyn appeared at his office door. Her expression was serious, but there was something different this time, an absence of the cold detachment she had carried before. Maybe, for the first time, she was seeing his vulnerability. Jonathan, exhausted from the endless battles, decided to speak with complete honesty. "Evelyn," he started, his voice uncertain. "I know I've made a lot of mistakes. I know my choices have hurt people in ways I can't undo. And I understand if you think there's no point in me even trying anymore." She watched him carefully, arms crossed, but there was a slight shift in her posture, an indication that she was at least willing to listen. "It's a start," she said, her tone softer than before. "But admitting mistakes isn't enough. What do you plan to do about it?" Jonathan inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of the question. He had thought about it, but he didn't have a clear answer yet. "I don't know," he admitted. "I just know I can't keep going down the same path." Evelyn nodded slowly. "That's true. But real change isn't just an idea. It's something you have to practice every day. Leadership isn't about always being in control. It's about learning to listen. Are you willing to do that?" He swallowed hard, his pride fighting against his instinct to say yes. But he knew the truth. "I am," he said, "but I don't think I can do it alone." For the first time in a long time, Evelyn gave a small, knowing smile. "No one can, Jonathan. That's why real leadership isn't about standing alone. It's about trusting others. It's about building something bigger than yourself." Her words echoed in his mind. For years, he had believed that being in control meant handling everything on his own, that relying on others was a weakness. But now, faced with his own shortcomings, he realized the truth. Trust wasn't a weakness. It was the very thing he had been missing. After a long pause, Evelyn spoke again. "If you're serious about changing, there's a way forward, but it won't be easy. And it will require you to unlearn everything you think you know about leadership." Jonathan looked up at her, finally feeling something he hadn't in a long time. Hope. "I'm ready," he said. "Tell me how I can help." That same week, Evelyn took Jonathan to visit a social initiative the company had invested in as part of its recovery efforts. The project focused on empowering women in vulnerable situations, helping them build the skills and confidence to enter the workforce. For Jonathan, who had spent his entire career in high-rise offices and luxury boardrooms, stepping into this environment felt uncomfortably real. At one of the meetings, he found himself sitting among women whose lives were worlds apart from his own. Single mothers struggling to provide for their children, survivors of abuse trying to rebuild, individuals fighting to break free from cycles of poverty. As he listened to their stories, something shifted within him. This wasn't about profit margins or quarterly reports. This was about people, about lives, about the real impact of every decision made at the top. For the first time, Jonathan understood. Leadership wasn't about control. It was about responsibility. And he was finally ready to embrace it. As Jonathan stood amidst the crowd, an older woman with silver hair and deep, knowing eyes approached him. "You're Jonathan Hale, aren't you?" she asked, her voice steady. "The man behind the company supporting this project?" Caught off guard, he hesitated before nodding. "Yes, that's me." The woman studied him for a long moment before speaking again. "My son worked for you a few years back," she said. "He gave years of his life to your company, only to be let go without a word. It broke him, you know. He lost his motivation, his sense of purpose." A heavy knot formed in Jonathan's chest. I'm sorry," he stammered. "I didn't know." She shook her head, her expression calm but firm. "Maybe you never cared to know. But seeing you here today, I wonder, maybe things are changing. I just hope that change is real." Her words hit him harder than he expected. For years, he had made decisions without thinking about the lives they affected. He had been exactly the kind of leader Evelyn had described, one who saw people as numbers rather than individuals with stories, struggles, and dreams. Back at the office, still shaken by the encounter, Jonathan sought out Evelyn. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for bringing me there. Today, I finally understood what you meant." Evelyn met his gaze, and for the first time, there was no coldness, only understanding. "This is just the beginning, Jonathan," she replied. "Change takes time and action, but maybe, over time, you'll realize that real leadership is about service, not control." That same week, Evelyn encouraged him to attend a meeting with the social project team. It was a crucial opportunity for him to listen, to truly hear the voices of those working on the ground. Walking into the meeting room, he felt the weight of the team's stares. Some eyes held skepticism, others curiosity. He knew he had a lot to prove and little time to regain their trust. Evelyn signaled for him to speak, but for once, he hesitated. Maybe, he thought, this was a moment to listen rather than talk. The meeting began with team members sharing their experiences and concerns about the project's progress. One of them, Mark, a passionate and dedicated young man, spoke about the struggles they faced. "The biggest challenge," Mark explained, "is the constant pressure to deliver quick results. But this isn't just another business deal. This is about people's lives. We need stability. We need commitment." Jonathan listened intently, absorbing every word. For the first time, he truly saw what Evelyn and the team had been fighting for. This wasn't about short-term gains or impressive numbers on a report. It was about building something lasting, something meaningful. And for the first time, he realized he wanted to understand, not just manage. After the meeting, Jonathan made a decision. He wasn't going to just oversee the project from the top. He was going to immerse himself in it, not as a leader, as a learner. He needed to see firsthand how the choices made in a boardroom affected lives in the real world. Evelyn accompanied him on visits to the communities benefiting from the project. On one of those visits, he met Julia, a young mother whose life had been transformed by the training program. Tears welled in her eyes as she spoke about the opportunity she had been given. "This program gave me a chance," she said. "A real chance to support my daughter, to build a future." As Jonathan listened, something shifted inside him. For the first time in his life, he understood. This was what leadership was meant to be. Not power, not control, but impact. As Jonathan listened to Julia's story, a lump formed in his throat. For so long, he had seen business through numbers and reports, failing to realize the real lives impacted by his decisions. These weren't just figures on a spreadsheet. These were people with struggles, hopes, and dreams. Now, standing among them, he finally understood what Evelyn had been fighting for. The true measure of success wasn't in profit margins, but in the individual transformations of each person touched by the work they were doing. Back at the office, still processing everything, Jonathan found Evelyn. This time his voice was steady, his words filled with a newfound determination. "You were right," he admitted. "I always saw this as just another tool for expansion, a way to rebuild my reputation and climb back to the top. But today, I realized how wrong I was." Evelyn studied him, weighing his words carefully. "So what do you plan to do now?" He took a deep breath, choosing his response carefully. "I want to learn," he said. "I want to do this the right way, to serve, to truly see the impact of what we're building. I want every person involved in these projects to find something I never had. Real leadership." For the first time, Evelyn saw something different in his eyes. Genuine sincerity. "Then start proving it," she said simply. "With every decision, every conversation, show us that change isn't just a promise, but something real." In the weeks that followed, Jonathan threw himself into the work, immersing himself in every aspect of the projects. He was no longer just a businessman overseeing a venture. He was learning from the people on the ground, following each initiative closely, understanding its challenges and victories. Slowly, his role began to shift. He wasn't the boss giving orders anymore. He became someone who listened, who sought to understand, who wanted to serve rather than control. At first, the board remained skeptical, but they started to notice the subtle changes. He was more open to feedback, less impulsive in his decisions. Evelyn, too, saw his progress. She remained cautious, knowing that true change wasn't immediate, but rather a continuous process. She wanted him to understand that leadership wasn't just about moments, it was about commitment over time. By the end of the month, Jonathan felt something he hadn't in a long time: peace. For the first time, he didn't see the project as a stepping stone for personal gain, but as a mission that touched countless lives. One afternoon, as Evelyn passed by his office, he stood and stopped her. "Thank you," he said, his voice sincere, "for not giving up on me, even when I refused to see it." Evelyn gave him a small smile. "Leadership is a long journey, Jonathan. But if you truly commit to it, you'll come to understand its real value." Her words stayed with him. For the first time, he felt ready, not just to lead, but to grow. Jonathan dedicated himself to the project with an intensity that surprised everyone around him. In the weeks following the company's crisis, he committed to learning every detail, not just about finances, but about the communities they served. He attended weekly visits, engaged with the team, and understood the weight of each decision. No longer was the project just an investment. It had become his mission. For Jonathan, this was more than about winning back the board's trust. It was about rebuilding something far more important, his own sense of purpose. And Evelyn, watching from a distance, was the first to see just how much he had changed. In the months that followed, Evelyn observed Jonathan from a distance, curious to see if this transformation would last. At first, she had doubts, but over time, his continued presence at the project, his thoughtful questions, and his genuine effort to listen and understand proved that his commitment was real. As his determination became evident, so did the board's renewed respect for him. What had initially been routine appearances at project meetings soon became a central part of his schedule. Jonathan began learning people's names, understanding their stories, and tracking their progress. It was a world completely different from the high-stakes business meetings and elite networking events that had once consumed his time. During one of his visits, he had a long conversation with Anna, a middle-aged woman who had lost her job but found a fresh start through the project. She spoke with a sincerity that deeply moved him, sharing the struggles she had endured and how the initiative had restored her dignity. "This isn't just a job for me, Mr. Hale," Anna said, emotion filling her voice. "It's a second chance. For the first time, I feel like someone believes in my potential." Jonathan felt his throat tighten. This wasn't just about providing opportunities. This was about rebuilding lives. Every story he heard reinforced the truth Evelyn had been trying to show him all along. His commitment grew stronger. He wanted to be worthy of the trust these people placed in the project. And more than anything, he wanted to prove, through action, that he truly cared. The project was no longer just a strategy on paper. It had become something real, something meaningful. As the results of the initiative became more visible, so did the company's reputation. The board, once skeptical of Jonathan's ability to lead responsibly, began to recognize his efforts. At board meetings, Jonathan presented progress updates with a humility that was new to him. Gone was the overconfident businessman who once sought recognition for personal gain. Instead, he shifted the focus to the team's work, highlighting Evelyn's contributions as crucial to the success of the initiative. The data spoke for itself. The project was making a tangible difference, and the board members didn't hide their satisfaction. During one meeting, Mr. Haynes, the chairman of the board, addressed Jonathan directly. "I have to admit, Jonathan," he said, "you're handling this project with a level of commitment that many of us didn't expect. This pilot initiative is proving to be a success, and I believe we can expand it further." Jonathan gave a quiet, appreciative smile, feeling the weight of those words. He knew that Evelyn had been an invaluable mentor in this journey, and in every meeting, he made sure to acknowledge her role. But something had begun to shift. What had once been just professional admiration was turning into something more. The more time Jonathan spent working alongside Evelyn, the more he began to see her differently. She wasn't just an intelligent and capable leader. She was a force of nature, a woman with an unwavering sense of purpose, someone who didn't just manage the project, but became an essential part of it. He saw it in the way she spoke with the people they helped, in the attention she gave to every detail, in the respect she earned effortlessly. Evelyn had a quiet strength that inspired those around her. During a visit to one of the project sites, Jonathan and Evelyn attended a small gathering organized by the beneficiaries, a simple celebration to thank the team for their support. Jonathan watched as Evelyn moved through the crowd, interacting with people with a warmth and sincerity that deeply touched him. She belonged here, and the people knew it. Watching her, Jonathan felt something stir inside him. As the evening wound down, Jonathan offered to walk Evelyn back to the office. The streets were quiet, and for the first time, he felt the urge to understand her beyond the work they did together. "Evelyn," he said, his voice softer than usual, "I've always admired your dedication to this project. But what led you to be so deeply involved?" She smiled, a rare, genuine smile that lit up her face. "Jonathan, I've always believed in doing something bigger than myself," she said. "I grew up seeing people around me struggle, people who just needed a chance. That left a mark on me, working on something that helps others rebuild their lives. It's the most meaningful thing I could ever do." Her words struck him in a way he hadn't expected. For so long, he had viewed the project as a way to rebuild his reputation, a way to prove himself. But for Evelyn, this was never about personal gain. It was about something deeper. And in that moment, Jonathan finally understood what truly drove the extraordinary woman walking beside him. In the weeks that followed, Jonathan and Evelyn's collaboration grew stronger. What had once been a professional partnership built on tension and caution transformed into something else, something built on trust and mutual respect. They strategized together, shared ideas, and supported each other through every challenge. But as they spent more time working side by side, Jonathan couldn't ignore the realization forming in his heart. Something had changed, and it wasn't just about leadership anymore. Jonathan didn't just admire Evelyn, he was beginning to fall in love with her. The realization caught him off guard. He had always been reserved, even skeptical about mixing personal relationships with work. Yet now, he found himself constantly thinking about Evelyn, looking for excuses to be near her, finding joy in the way she smiled. She wasn't just a colleague, she was someone who challenged him, inspired him, and made him want to be better. One evening, after a long meeting, they remained in the office, discussing the future of the project. What had started as a professional conversation slowly drifted into something more personal. Jonathan took the opportunity to express his gratitude. "Evelyn, I owe you so much," he said sincerely. "Everything I've learned these past few months, I wouldn't have gotten here without you. Before, I thought success was about control and expansion, but you taught me that the real value is in building something meaningful." Evelyn looked at him, surprised by his words. "I'm glad to know this meant something to you, Jonathan. Seeing this change in you has been one of the most rewarding things I've experienced." Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, there was a quiet tension between them. Something unspoken, yet undeniably present. Jonathan felt the urge to move closer, but he hesitated. He didn't want to cross a boundary that could risk their professional relationship, but at the same time, he knew what he felt for Evelyn was real. As the days passed, Jonathan found himself drawn to Evelyn more and more. He noticed the small things, the way she lit up when speaking about something that moved her, how effortlessly she inspired those around her, the unwavering conviction in her voice when defending the project's purpose. Evelyn wasn't just someone he admired. She was someone he deeply respected, someone who brought meaning to his life in a way no one ever had before. One night, after working late in the office, he let something slip. "You know," he said absent-mindedly, "you're one of the most incredible people I've ever met." Evelyn laughed softly, a bit surprised by his sincerity. "Thank you, Jonathan," she said. "But I think you've changed a lot too. And honestly, I admire the person you're becoming." Her words struck something deep within him. That was the moment he realized. This wasn't just fleeting admiration or attraction. This was real. He wasn't just in love with Evelyn. He wanted to build something with her. Not just in their work, but in life. As the days went on, their connection deepened. Their professional partnership evolved into something more. Something neither of them had expected, yet both of them felt. Jonathan, once driven by ego and ambition, now found himself opening up to Evelyn in ways he never had with anyone before. With her, he felt lighter, more alive, more complete. And Evelyn felt the same. She had watched Jonathan transform, not just as a businessman, but as a person. His change wasn't just an act, it was genuine, and that drew her in more than she ever expected. Over the next few weeks, Jonathan found ways to spend more time with her. He invited her to lunch after meetings, suggested evening walks after long workdays, and started conversations that drifted beyond work, conversations about life, fears, and dreams. Slowly, the line between professional and personal blurred, and their connection grew stronger with each passing day. One evening, after an intense day working on the project, they remained in the office, reviewing reports late into the night. The dim lighting, the quiet stillness of the space, it created an intimacy neither of them could ignore. They sat close, their arms almost touching. Jonathan could feel the warmth of her presence beside him, and an overwhelming sense of tenderness washed over him. "I wanted to thank you," he said suddenly, breaking the silence. "For everything, for pushing me to be better, for believing in me, even when I didn't deserve it." Evelyn turned to him, her expression soft, yet filled with depth. "You don't need to thank me, Jonathan," she said gently. "The change came from you. I just helped you see the path." He smiled, but there was more he needed to say, something that had been weighing on him for weeks. His heart pounded. He had spent so much of his life running from emotions like this. But now, he knew he couldn't hide from it any longer. Taking a deep breath, he spoke. "Evelyn," he said, his voice hesitant but firm. I can't keep pretending. The truth is, I'm in love with you." The words hung between them. Evelyn's eyes widened slightly, her breath hitching. Jonathan's heart pounded as he waited for her response. At that moment, everything had changed. Jonathan felt his heartbeat quicken, afraid that revealing his feelings had been a mistake. But instead of pulling away, Evelyn smiled softly, her eyes shimmering with emotion. "I love you too, Jonathan," she confessed, her voice filled with sincerity. His breath caught as she continued. "I've felt this way for a while, but I was afraid of how it might change everything we've built together." Jonathan let out a relieved laugh, one filled with emotion. "I felt the same way," he admitted. "But I can't keep pretending these feelings don't exist. I don't want to just be your partner at work. I want to be with you in every way." Evelyn nodded, her smile growing. "I want that too. I think we're finally ready for something more." Still sitting side by side, they instinctively leaned in. Jonathan felt his heart race as Evelyn's lips met his in a gentle yet deep kiss. In that moment, all barriers fell. It was pure connection, one built on trust, admiration, and love. As they pulled away, he wrapped his arms around her in a warm embrace, sealing their decision to move forward together. From that day on, their relationship naturally blossomed. They began spending more time together outside of work, exploring the city, sharing dinners, enjoying moments that had nothing to do with business. Every conversation brought them closer, revealing how perfectly they complemented each other. At work, they remained professional, ensuring their relationship didn't interfere with their responsibilities. But the people around them noticed, the way their eyes lit up when they spoke, the unspoken understanding between them. Though they had fallen in love, their dedication to the project remained their top priority. But it was also clear that their love fueled their passion for their work, making them even stronger together. As months passed, the project thrived beyond expectations. The community flourished, with participants finding new job opportunities and rediscovering hope for the future. With the success of the initiative, plans to expand into other regions began to take shape, and the company gained national recognition for its ethical and sustainable impact. The board, once skeptical of Jonathan's leadership, now fully supported his vision. In a board meeting, Mr. Haynes, who had always been one of his toughest critics, addressed him directly. "Jonathan, you've proven that change is possible," he said. "This project is a success, and much of that is because of your commitment and vision. I'm proud to say you are a true leader now." Jonathan nodded, humbled by the words. He glanced at Evelyn sitting beside him and felt a deep sense of gratitude. He knew without her, none of this would have been possible. Outside of work, their love continued to deepen. Jonathan had never felt this way before. He had spent so much of his life chasing success, but now he realized that real fulfillment came from sharing it with someone who truly mattered. One sunny afternoon, as they walked through a quiet park, he gently took Evelyn's hand and stopped. Looking into her eyes, he spoke from the heart. "I never thought I'd find someone like you," he admitted, emotion thick in his voice. "You've changed my life, Evelyn, and I want to spend the rest of it making you happy." Evelyn's eyes filled with joyful tears. "I want that too, Jonathan," she whispered. "You're not the same man I met at the start. You've become someone even greater, and I love you for who you are." Jonathan smiled, his heart full, and kissed her softly beneath the golden afternoon sky. As time went on, their journey continued, both in love and in leadership. The company became a shining example of ethical business and social responsibility, setting a new standard for how businesses could drive positive change. Together, Jonathan and Evelyn took on co-leadership roles, ensuring the impact of their work reached even more communities. They weren't just known as successful leaders, but as an inspiring couple, proof that love, integrity, and dedication could truly transform lives. The company received awards, media recognition, and national praise. But for Jonathan and Evelyn, the greatest reward wasn't in accolades. It was in seeing lives changed, families restored, and futures rebuilt. Because of what they had started together. Months later, in a small, intimate ceremony, Jonathan and Evelyn exchanged vows. Surrounded by friends, colleagues, and community members whose lives they had helped transform, they promised not only their love to each other, but also their commitment to a greater purpose. Their vows weren't just words of romance. They were promises to continue working side by side, leading with their hearts, and leaving behind a legacy far greater than themselves. That night, as they danced under the stars, Jonathan reflected on how much his life had changed. The man who once sought success at all costs now understood. True success came from building something with meaning, with purpose, with the woman he loved. And so, together, they began a new chapter. Not just as partners in business, but as partners in life. A love story built on transformation, trust, and the belief that together they could change the world. Do you think Evelyn made the right choice in forgiving Jonathan? Share your thoughts in the comments. On a scale from 1 to 10, how would you rate this story? If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories.